Yeah, we know it's been a while. We'll just save it for the end. Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. That's RM Korea. It's late July, and here we are. Training camp has started. We're into the second half of the MLB season. We pretty much, football is right around the corner, both college and professional. It sounds like the dog days of summer are almost wrapping up, Ari. How you feeling?
Yeah, I'm doing good. We're now officially into the phase where every NFL team is in training camp. The Hall of Fame game is in about a week or so, I want to say. Um, the MLB trade deadline is in like 6 days. So, a lot of exciting things in the sports world coming up, especially next week with actual football. Obviously, it's preseason Hall of Fame game, but still just to see an actual football game played is still step forward, from all these camp reports and all of that. But yeah, a lot of exciting things coming up.
I mean, yeah, now since training camp is now open for um, pretty much the whole league now, let's get just right into it. Some of the leading headlines as we get into the beginning of training camp. Michelle Trubisky, right now he is seeing first team reps. Obviously, a lot of people were kind of debating on who's going to be the Pittsburgh starting quarterback this upcoming season after Michelle Trubisky signed with the Steelers this offseason. Meanwhile, the team drafting Kenny Pickett in the first round, there were some questions. Is it Kenny or Trubisky? And a lot of people, and right now, Michelle Trubisky is seeing first team reps. But Ari, what do you think? Do you think it's going to be Kenny Pickett's team still, or how do you evaluate Michelle Trubisky seeing first team reps right now?
No, yeah, I mean, I think most expected Trubisky to see the first team reps kind of first, but I'm sure they'll both get their opportunity in training camp and preseason to prove themselves. But I don't know. I mean, I think Trubisky's going to get the first shot, assuming he plays fine in training camp and preseason. But I think that this is a year where we could see both of them get some opportunity under center throughout the season. Um, I think Trubisky has more potential than what we saw in Chicago. I think just in the better system, better offense, better coach, better everything in Pittsburgh than what he was with in Chicago. So I think he'll definitely get the first shot, to start for the Steelers. But I think it's a situation where his leash, in that starting role is pretty short, and so I think Pickett will definitely get his opportunity to prove himself.
Yeah, I think it's more precautionary because Trubisky is obviously the more established veteran out of the two. Michelle was obviously playing for the Bears for the early part of his career before going to the Bills for 1 year being a backup to Josh Allen. Now potentially looking to be the starter for the new Pittsburgh Steelers organization without Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, I didn't see it that much surprise either, considering Michelle Trubisky is the more established veteran. A lot of people have been kind of questioning Kenny Pickett as well due to his size of his hands, being a little abnormally small. But that's neither here nor there. I still think Kenny Pickett's going to get some first team reps probably throughout this preseason because it's the preseason, so we're probably going to see a lot more Kenny Pickett. But it's just going to be a quarterback battle, and we'll see who's the best quarterback at the end. Obviously, we don't really know what the Pittsburgh Steelers are kind of looking for and leaning towards in terms of their starting quarterback. But at the same time, it's just a new start, considering their longtime quarterback, obviously Ben Roethlisberger, officially retiring after the offseason began for this Pittsburgh Steelers team. So, it's just kind of seeing like, okay, who's going to be the next man in line? And obviously Mike Tomlin is a top 5 coach of all time, never really going under 500 in any of his career. So, this is definitely going to be a brand new season, a brand new look to the Steelers organization. Now more than ever, considering, they could go with the hometown boy and Kenny Pickett, who played at the University of Pittsburgh, or, go with the more established veteran, not more established, someone who has a lot more NFL experience than Kenny Pickett and Joe Trubisky. So definitely something to monitor, but at the same time, we're definitely going to see Kenny Pickett get some reps as well. I'm not going to be surprised if Kenny Pickett gets some reps as well. Not even, and along with probably playing in, I believe Pittsburgh is playing in the Hall of Fame game, or if I'm not mistaken, or who's in the Hall of Fame game? I know it's Jacksonville versus.
It's the Raiders.
Oh, the Raiders. Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Well, in the three preseason games that the Steelers have, obviously we're going to see a lot more Kenny Pickett. So it's nothing to be concerned about. But at the same time, we're probably going to see Pickett maybe get a lot more second team. But depending on how the preseason goes, we'll probably see him move up to first team just on how he does throughout the offseason and how hard he wants to be the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I'm not surprised that Mitchell Trubisky is seeing first team reps, but we'll see at the end of the day. But moving on from the Steelers, we're going to transition here to the Carolina Panthers, who have quarterback hell right now because they obviously just traded for Sam Darnold the previous offseason, and now this offseason trading for Baker Mayfield. So that quarterback room is a little more competitive, but Sam and Baker, they're splitting reps right now in camp, and it's something to really monitor as well because obviously a lot of people kind of presume that now that Baker was being traded, I was assuming that Baker's going to be the starter, especially week one, considering he's playing his former team in the Browns at home. So that's definitely, something to monitor as well. But for now, I'm not really surprised between the two just because, they traded for both of them. So they obviously wanted to get some value out of them to see who could be the starter week one. But in terms of my prediction, I would definitely say Baker will probably get the nod week one, but you can't really rule out how Sam Darnold will do. Obviously, there's been so many questions with him just in terms of how he was drafted, in terms of the Jets immediately starting him and, not really getting him that much experience, good experience. And then now moving to this Carolina team where he has a lot more weapons, but still nothing production wise. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how they really evaluate between the two quarterbacks, former first round picks, top 10 picks as well. I believe they're in the same draft, or was that the
Yeah,
year
they were.
after? Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were in. Yeah, they went 1-2 or 1-3 in that draft.
I think it was Baker, Barkley, Darnold. I want to say. I think
I
those were
think
the
it was. Yeah.
yeah.
So 1-3 in that draft. So it's crazy how all roads somehow lead to Carolina for both QBs in the same draft. Ari, do you really see one really shining other than the other in between the two, or do you think it's up to the preseason to find out who's going to be starting for the Carolina Panthers?
No, yeah. I mean, my expectation is still that Baker will be the week one starter. I think it's more so just to help him get acclimated to the offense and all of that. Darnold, I saw was getting first team reps today, Wednesday, and then Baker tomorrow on Thursday will get those reps. So definitely early on in camp, as Baker gets more used to the Panthers offense, a new offense, I think, Darnold will still see those first team reps. But I think as we get, into August, later into August in the preseason in September, come week one, I still expect Baker to be the week one starter. I think they traded for him for that reason. And, assuming health and all that, I think it'll be Baker week one for Carolina against his old team in Cleveland.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think Baker Mayfield will probably get the nod. I kind of like how, the Carolina coaching staff has really divided this into really just evenly split between the two teams. Obviously, you mentioned Sam Darnold Monday, Wednesday, and then Baker on Tuesday, Thursday. So this is like a truly open, fight to see who's going to be the best quarterback. And obviously, expectations would be Baker as he starts to mesh with that Carolina offense. Now bringing back a healthy CMC this season, along with DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and all those guys on that, Terrence Marshall, all the guys on that Carolina offense that they can prove to be special. So definitely be interesting. I also believe Baker will probably get the nod week one, just not only just because it's his former team. Just I think talent wise, I definitely see a lot more potential in him than Sam Darnold right now. But at this time, we also don't know what Sam Darnold has to bring to the table. So we'll be monitoring this as well. But something to keep an eye on just to see whether or not who will get the nod week one under center for that Carolina offense. Probably assuming we Baker, but we'll see what Sam Darnold has left in the tank as well. But now we're going to move on to another team in the NFL. This was just kind of not breaking news, but just another stacked wide receiver core. Julio Jones announced yesterday that he is signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was announced earlier today that's a 1 year, $6 million deal, up to $8 million in incentives. So pretty much a veteran standard in the league. Ari, we see this wide receiver core. We also just learned yesterday that Chris Godwin may be eligible for week one. So you have Mike Evans. You have a healthier Chris Godwin than more than expected. And now as we go into that, and you have Julio Jones. They also just signed Russell Gage this offseason. Is this the best wide receiver core in the NFL? Or are your thoughts?
I think it's definitely up there. I don't know if I would go to say it's, the best core in the league. I still think the Bengals have the best wide receiver core in the league. We saw last year with Julio with Tennessee. He showed flashes, but, at this point in his career, I don't see, anything that special in him. I think if anything, maybe Tom Brady, gets the best out of him, assuming he can stay healthy. But I think at first I thought that this signing was because maybe they expected Godwin to be out the early part of the season. Then the report came out of Godwin potentially he was being cleared for the beginning of training camp, not being placed in the PUP list. So maybe he's healthy for week 1, maybe week 2 or 3, maybe he's healthy or whatever. But I think more so than not, we saw with Julio, we saw teams like the Colts, the Ravens, Packers, all kind of linked to him, all, teams that needed wide receiver help. And you mentioned, the signing of Russell Gage. And then if Godwin's healthy, they definitely don't have that new receiver. But I think at this point in his career, he's more so just trying to sign, with the contender to potentially compete for a ring. Obviously, it's also in the same division as Atlanta, who he's with most of his career. So that's interesting as well. But I feel like this is mostly just a move for Julio, just to have a chance to compete. For Super Bowl with Tom Brady and the Bucs this year. I wouldn't say I expect a ton, production wise from him, but certainly having him there doesn't, hurt them at all. So. And then we mentioned Godwin being clear for the beginning of training camp after he tore his ACL. I want to say it was late in the regular season last year. And so I think most assumed that he would miss at least the first 2-3 weeks. And so now him being cleared for the start of training camp definitely makes you believe that maybe he is healthy for week 1, or like I said, maybe he misses 1 or 2 games, but doesn't have to miss, too much of the early part of the season. So this definitely will be a pretty scary offense. And, any receiver with Tom Brady, he can make you look real good. So, obviously the Bucs are going to be the clear favorite in the NFC South, and then, one of the favorites coming out of the NFC as well this year.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think this is definitely a kind of a ring chasing move. No shader whatsoever, but Julio Jones, obviously, he kind of deserves it after what he's been through with the Atlanta organization, obviously almost winning, but we all know the infamous 28-3. And then, now trying with the new team in Tennessee, and, the playoff struggles continue for that Tennessee Titans offense. And now he moves to an already stacked Bucs offense, already bringing back Leonard Fournette. They obviously have still the GOAT Tom Brady at quarterback. That was one of the bigger surprises of the offseason, see Tom Brady retire and then unretire. And then obviously now you have Julio Jones out, pretty much well-known veteran in the league. You have Russell Gage, just played for Atlanta, so nice Julio Russell Gage connection coming back there. That'd be nice to see. Former teammates now on the Bucs. And then you also Mike Evans, obviously touchdown dependent wide receiver, and then a healthier Chris Godwin, who may or may not be here for week 1. We don't know, but obviously coming back way earlier than a lot of people anticipated for him now, coming back potentially for weeks 1 through 3, and not entering the PUP list before training camp starts. So definitely something to note there. But I also think that the Bengals still have the number 1 wide receiver core in the league. I think this is just a stacked core in the league as well, but I don't think it's the number 1. I think this is probably number 2 as well. I think personally, it's just because you see the veteran leadership and just how stacked that offense is. And then you have who really hasn't had a good quarterback to play with, and now he has the best quarterback pretty much of all time for some people. For most people, Tom Brady as your quarterback definitely could be something special. But in terms of fantasy, I don't think anything really, name breaking is going to be happening to Julio Jones this year. But now moving into the Chris Godwin update, definitely a big update there. You mentioned that, we definitely saw that injury late into the season last year. I believe it was like week 17 or week 18. I forgot which week it was, but still one of those 2 weeks, already so late in the season that, it was definitely a lot, harder to see people thinking that Chris Godwin was going to make it. But now he makes it back off the PUP list, and he's cleared to come back to training camp as soon as he's fully healthy. So, definitely a big shocker there to see him fully healthy, but definitely, a nice surprise for some fantasy owners who were a little bit skeptical on Chris Godwin. Now seeing him a lot more healthy to after that scary ACL tear late in the regular season last year. Ari, what are your thoughts on Chris Godwin coming back a little early? Obviously, a little more hesitant as well, just because it's a torn ACL, and that's a very big wide injury, especially for wide receivers who have to use their legs 24/7. So, what do you, in terms of him coming back a little early. What do you think? Do you still hesitating to pick him up off in the draft? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely very hesitant on Godwin, especially if he plays week one, because it just seems too early. I mean, obviously, some players' bodies recover quicker than others, and so maybe that's the case with Godwin. But now you add Gage and Julio to this offense, it just kind of makes it a little bit more crowded. So, I mean, I wouldn't say Godwin is necessarily a complete avoid or anything in fantasy drafts this year, but if he's going maybe like the fourth round, I feel like that's probably a little bit too early, just given the injury, how late he suffered it. Maybe he recovers quicker and surprises, some people, and he's fully healthy by week one. But I feel like there's definitely, safer options in that fourth, fifth round range that hold also comparable upside. So, I mean, I probably won't have much, if any, investment in Godwin this year, but hopefully he's fully healthy, and he'll definitely be fully healthy at some point. Just hopefully he doesn't return too early and then that he'll miss more time. But I'm sure the Bucks will do, and him will do his best for him, especially because now that they have Gage and Julio alongside Mike Evans, and then we've seen Brady make guys like Scotty Miller make plays last year. So and then they also just signed Kyle Rudolph. They have Cameron Brate. So even if Godwin misses time early, they have plenty of weapons in his absence until he gets fully healthy.
Yeah, we always mention Brady and having plenty of options, and him restructuring his contract for that reason. And he definitely has many, many options this year. You mentioned the addition of Kyle Rudolph, and obviously now Julio. They already got Gage this offseason. They're bringing back Evans. Godwin is coming back potentially earlier than expected. They definitely have a lot more depth as well. I think that's kind of a reason why I definitely would stay away from Godwin as well, just because of how much depth they have in that wide receiver core, and also now bringing in more offensive weapons. I definitely would stay away from Godwin from a fantasy point as well, but at the same time, great to see that he's making this kind of a comeback already after a horrible ACL tear late in the regular season. But I want to say in the NFC South quickly because this is kind of like breaking, but not really. Michael Thomas returning to the practice field after a lot of people said he was going to be on the PUP list. He even tweeted out like your fantasy football doctor got it wrong or something like that on Twitter earlier today. So now Michael Thomas, obviously this man has been battling injuries ever since his last 2019-2020 season pretty much. Or is that the 20? Yeah, that was his last really big season that he had with Drew Brees. He kind of pretty much fell off the face of the earth after that because of his injuries. And now that Drew Brees retired, new quarterback. So definitely a big name to kind of monitor as well coming out of training camp now with Michael Thomas. Obviously, a lot of people have been definitely hesitant to just even select him in drafts or, keep him on the bench just because of how inactive he's been. But if he's saying your fantasy football doctor got it wrong, Ari, what do you think? Do you think that Michael Thomas is healthier than we believe, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think for this year, it's still kind of a wait-and-see situation because last offseason too, it seemed like, he's going to be back. So, I mean, you'd think after basically like a year, basically 2 years, because he's played, I think, 6 or 7 games last 2 years combined. So, like, basically 2 years off. You'd hope, he's fully healthy this year. But I still think it's a waiting situation to make sure that he can stay healthy all throughout training camp and then preseason. I mean, obviously, we know the upside. If he's fully healthy, just a few years ago, he was the number 1 overall wide receiver in fantasy football. So, but that was also, in a different situation, with Breeze and all that. But I mean, I still think the upside's there if he's fully healthy. He's still going to be the clear number 1. If he's healthy, he'll be the clear number 1 over Landry and Olave and New Orleans. So the opportunity is still there if he's healthy, but just all comes down to health, and hopefully that health is with them this season.
Yeah, you mentioned Michael Thomas's health has been kind of the one thing plaguing him these past 2 years after his, amazing year with setting the reception record in just dominant fashion with Drew Brees in their kind of like final year together before they went on and lost in the playoffs again. But, just like we said, Michael Thomas, this is always a name that we always kind of bring up as, someone who is a flash, but not really sticking to the pan, just someone who has not even been here for the past 2 years. So definitely very hesitant as well. But you mentioned last year, he said that, oh, he's going to come back and be healthy, but he didn't even play that many games last year. So he's been on a long hiatus for the
He didn't
past
play
2
one
years.
game last year.
Yeah, that's right. He didn't play a single game last year. So he's pretty much been on a long hiatus for the past 2 seasons. So definitely a huge risk on Michael Thomas just because you really don't know which Michael Thomas is telling the truth in terms of his health. I mean, doctors could say one thing and he could be saying one thing, kind of like J.K. Dobbins. So definitely another player to definitely stay away from. But as you mentioned, if he is healthy and he comes back to that New Orleans roster, I definitely could see him being the number one as well over Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave, on that New Orleans core just because of how he's been there and how he's just been the veteran leader and how dominant that we've seen him, throughout this time, just be that elite wide receiver that he is. So hopefully it's real this time, but that's definitely something to monitor as well throughout training camp as well. But we're going to keep moving throughout training camp. This is going to be like our big thing today, just hitting all the training camps around the league. And we're going to move to the West now, kind of a little bit of an update on the San Francisco quarterback situation. Kyle Shanahan, the front office, they all believe that Trey Lance is the guy now. It's Trey Lance's team. They said that, quote, it's basically Trey's team. So they've already decided to move on with Jimmy G. But, as time moves on, opportunities may get lost, rosters may be getting filled. It just seems like I feel like Jimmy G is kind of the quarterback that will be traded due to a quarterback maybe injuring themselves in this training camp period for now, as they try to, and they're still trying to work some deal with Deebo Samuel at the same time. So Ari, obviously you mentioned that you're big on Trey Lance. It's now kind of seeming that it is Trey Lance's team. What do you have your expectations for Trey Lance? And then what do you think about this whole Jimmy G situation? Do you think that trade will be resolved soon, or do you think the Niners just lose all that money and release him?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely happy that Shanahan made it clear about that it's Trey Lance's team and not make it a quote unquote training camp battle, because it definitely shouldn't be. I mean, with Garoppolo, it's possible he gets released. It's also possible that they try and hold on to him until like an injury happens and then make a trade then. But I feel like Garoppolo, he won't want that to happen. So like he wouldn't want to wait, like half a season or whatever. So I feel like it's more likely that they release him, especially like just out of respect with all he's done, for the organization. But there's still like no really openings right now in any team. So I feel like even if Garoppolo is released, he might decide to wait until an injury happens or whatever, and then try to sign with that team. Because right now, I mean, you can name teams that he could start on, but it's like it doesn't seem as likely that like the Seahawks. Like I don't see the Seahawks signing him. You can argue he's better than Davis Mills in Houston, but I don't see Houston signing him. So like it's not that he can't start on any team, but it's just like with the direction, the limited teams that he could start on, with the direction that they're headed, it doesn't seem like it would make sense for them to sign Garoppolo. So, I mean, I feel like most likely, whether he's released or traded, it's going to come down to an injury happening, and him signing with that team, whoever it is. But, as for Lance, I mean, they traded up all that draft equity to move up to number 3 to take him. So I think he definitely is the future. I know a lot of people are uncertain just because of how little college time he played, and all of that. But to me, it's not only his talent, but also the situations entering, behind one of the best offensive lines in the league. He has the rushing ability that makes, a fantasy quarterback separate themselves from the others. And then, you got a dominant rushing attack, including Lance. And then I still expect Deebo to be on the team week 1. So you got Deebo, Kittle, Ayuk. They're excited about Denny Gray, their rookie, the receiver that they just drafted. So him in the deep passing game, and Lance's specialty in the passing game is his deep ball. And so I think he'll definitely open up the 49ers passing game a lot more, because with Garoppolo, they were a lot more limited with what they could do, because it was a lot of kind of dink and dunk passes in the middle of the field, whereas Lance can really stretch the field. So you take Lance's rushing ability that Garoppolo doesn't have, and then his deep ball that Garoppolo wasn't consistent with. And I think this Niners offense is going to be super, super scary, if Lance can be unleashed, which I think he will be. So, I mean, as a Seahawks fan, I hope I'm wrong about Lance, but just from a fantasy football perspective, I think Lance is definitely going to unlock this offense to its full potential that, we saw flashes of with Garoppolo the past handful of years, but it was always just kind of limited just given his skill set.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I would prefer that this Niners team, even though I'm not a Niners fan and I hate the Niners, I feel like Trey Lance is definitely the guy that they kind of want to lean toward because you mentioned they have all that capital. They invested in that high in the 2021 draft for a reason. And yes, he sat 1 year behind them just to kind of see what the offense is like. But now it's a new offense, it's a new new organization. Obviously, still Kyle Shanahan still there, but just new kind of everything with this team. Um, New team, kind of new
Like a new era.
outlook. Yeah, new outlook for the team. I definitely feel like this Niners team will definitely try to move Trey Lance. No, not excuse me, move Jimmy G. Hopefully, if there's not any quarterback injuries, but if not, then definitely release them. I could see him releasing him too, even though they want to get some value for him. But I agree with you. This is Trey Lance's team, especially with how this offense is looking. You mentioned they're still working on the Deebo Samuel contract, but it sounds like it's going to be getting through sooner rather than later. So they locked up Deebo. They still have George Kittle. You mentioned Ayuk, and that kind of just 3 or 4 headed monster in the run game really proves to be evident. Obviously, even though they lost Raheem Mostert, they still have Elijah Mitchell leading that backfield. But hopefully, we've talked about the Niners running backs injury problem, so that could definitely be one of the bigger things plaguing this team. But in terms of how this offense is going to look, it's definitely going to be a big year. They said it's Trey Lance's team, and I feel like Trey Lance. Obviously, yes, there's a bunch of skepticism on just because we haven't really seen him that much, and obviously, when people have been saying, "Oh, is he NFL ready yet?" I think he is. I've seen the talent coming out of North Dakota State too. He definitely has that rushing ability that opens up the field. He has that deep ball threat, and the comparison between him and Jimmy really evident. So I definitely agree that this is Trey Lance's team, and I like that this is Trey Lance's team. It's definitely going to be a big season for him, kind of a coming out party for him. And in terms of Jimmy G, I guess we'll see what the Niners really do with him. I feel like they're going to try and save him just because trying to get some value for him, but we'll see what they really do with him in terms of whether or not they're going to release him, whether or not they'll trade him, vice versa, whatever. But now we're going to finally get into some not really happy news for some Seattle Seahawks fans. Chris Carson has officially hung up his gear. He is officially retiring as a member of the Seattle Seahawks, and the Seahawks release him so he can get plenty of benefits for his neck surgeries and his neck therapies. So definitely great to see that from the Seattle organization now making the right move to help this man. But look, Chris Carson had a short career with the Seahawks, but a long-lasting one. Many memories with this organization. His ability to, just be that monster power back that he is. Truck defenders, jump over. His hurdle was incredible. His break tackle was amazing. So sad to see, but it was kind of expected for the Seahawks organization. Drafting Kenneth Walker in the second round, you kind of knew that, okay, it looks like Chris Carson's either going to retire or he's not going to be coming back next season. So definitely was expected, but, still sad to see from such a great running back who didn't really have that much experience just due to injury. And this is something that's been plaguing him this whole career. And I kind of like to compare it to the Cam Chancellor situation. It's not the same injury, but at the same time, it's still like a very severe neck injury to where he is forced to retire early. So it's just sad to see, but us Seahawks fans were kind of expecting this moment. So it's not, horrible, but we just all hope that Chris Carson, enjoys retirement and gets the help that he needs from all the therapy and all the surgeries that he gets. So definitely not a surprise to see Chris Carson traded. Chris Carson released and retires, and we'll be getting a bunch of benefits from the Seattle organization. Ari?
Yeah, and Drunk said Rashad Penny. Carson was always overrated. I mean, you can say what you want about Carson as a player, but it's sad to see him forced to retire due to a neck injury that definitely could have been a lot worse if he played through it. Or if he kept playing through it. So I'm definitely glad that he decided to retire, not because I didn't want to see him go, but just for his long-term health. It was definitely better Um, I mean, Carson, I mean, you look at just a few years ago, 2018, 2019, 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns in 2018, and then over 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns in 2019. And so, in fantasy, he was basically an RB1 back-to-back years. And then 2020 was a little bit more injured, was when the injuries kind of started to kind of ramp up for him. And then last year with the neck injury, where he only played 4 games, is it can't get any worse than a neck injury for a football. For anybody, but especially for a hard runner like Carson, who is as physical a runner as he is. It definitely doesn't. The neck injury is definitely one that you want to avoid, and so it's definitely good to see him retire just for his long-term health. And you mentioned the Seahawks releasing him, which helps him, make more money. And so hopefully he has a good retirement. I know he was a former 7th-round pick, so it's definitely a good story of him being taken in the very last round of the NFL draft and working his way up to being the starter for the Seahawks. It was obviously, it was a short time, unfortunately, but the 2 years where he was dominant was definitely fun to watch. You mentioned the hurdle, and I posted on my story yesterday against the Vikings when he was wrapped up and he somehow got out of it and ran for a touchdown. I think it's Monday Night Football, I believe. So definitely fun memories in the short time that he was the starter for the Seahawks. And obviously wish him nothing but the best in his retirement. Unfortunately, at a young age, but the neck injury he suffered last year was definitely not one that you want to mess with.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And to that comment, I like Rashad Penny as well. The only thing with Rashad Penny is just his injuries as well. But
Penny has the same injury history, so it's
yeah,
hopefully he's
exactly. So
healthy
I was
this
about
year.
to say you can't really compare the two. But I mean Chris Carson, definitely a great running back. You mentioned his story, definitely a nice story to see. Late round pick, makes his way to the starting roster. Definitely a power back. A lot of not that much of the league really. Um, I'm not gonna say saw him, but just didn't really get to see that much power until he really came onto the scene. You mentioned that 2018, 2019 season, running back one, leading the team. And you mentioned late 2019 and 2020 season, we kind of saw those injuries had to pop up, and then his health just started coming in question. So yeah, I think he'll also be a running back coach somewhere. Definitely a great story to see Chris Carson, but sad to see him retire such at a young age. So I hope for the best for him. Nothing but the best for Chris Carson. He gave the Seahawks team, plenty of memories. Especially you mentioned that Vikings game in the 2020 season where he broke that tackle against Harrison Smith and ran it into the end zone. And we've seen him. I'm delayed. And we've seen him just do his absolute best throughout this season. Throughout being a Mariner, without being a Seahawk, but definitely great to see. Sorry, I'm trying to watch the Mariners game too here. So definitely great to see Chris Carson, get that money that he definitely is kind of, I'm not gonna say owed, but definitely would help him with his bills expenses for all the surgery he's probably gonna have to get on his neck and all that stuff. So, oh baby, woo-wee, get that out of here. Who we go? Okay, back to football. Staying with the Seahawks, I'm gonna mention this real quick. This just came out today. This was a great story. KJ Wright signs a 1-day contract with the Seahawks to officially retire as a Seahawk. He left this organization back, I believe, in 2019 to go to the Oakland Raiders, now moved to the Las Vegas Raiders. But now he's hung it up. He's also hanging up, but he wanted to retire as a member of the 12 Nations. So great to see him retire as a Seahawk. Signed a 1-day contract. There were some pictures online, him crying in Pete Carroll's arms. So that's just stuff you love to see from the Seahawks organization. A little surprised they didn't do that with Bobby Wagner, though. I'll tell you that much. But but you know what? It's a good start. But definitely great to see KJ Wright, retire as a Seahawk. Get that recognition that he'll always be a Seahawk for life. Member of the Legion of Boom. That's where his career started, and now that's where his career is ending. So great to see him, come back and finish off his career as a member of the Green and Blue Wave over here. Ari, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's definitely good to see him go off on a good path. After he played one season with the Raiders last year, it's definitely good to see him, retire on a good note with the Seahawks, unlike Richard Sherman, who's still talking bad on the Seahawks on Twitter, talking about how they should have kept Bobby Wagner, and people were replying to him, talking about how the Seahawks are going in a new wave now, and how them releasing Wagner wasn't about his play, but it was about the new era the Seahawks are entering, and then Sherman was talking about how getting worse. How does that make you better? But it's like, you have your younger players try to step up, and Richard Sherman was once that young player, that the Seahawks took a chance on, and we saw how that happened. So, I was just bringing that up because obviously Sherman didn't end on a good note, despite all the good years in Seattle, with the Seahawks. But so it's good to see KJ Wright, despite leaving Seattle, despite not ending his career technically with the Seahawks, despite signing the one-day contract today it was. But so yeah, it's good to see at least one member, of that Super Bowl run, finish on a good note with the Seahawks. We'll see what happens at Wagner. We're interested to see what the crowd is like, when the Rams come to Seattle. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see him end on a good note too, despite the way it ended. But I feel like it might not because of how when they released him, they didn't tell him or whatever. So that's the time for down the line. We'll see how that ends up. But yeah, it's good to see KJ Wright retire as a Seahawk, despite not playing technically his whole career with the Seahawks.
Yeah, you mentioned it with the whole Bobby Wagner situation. I want to get to this comment first. So Seahawks might as well trade DK too. Obviously, there's been rumors about that, but I feel like this Seahawks organization is kind of building around DK just because of how young he is and obviously how established as a wide receiver he is. And we really have no one else to build around. So definitely, I feel like DK Metcalf is kind of the centerpiece. But going back to Bobby Wagner, definitely he's kind of more on his revenge tour right now for the Seahawks organization now. Not only playing them twice a year, but ending the last game of the regular season in Seattle against the Rams, who obviously have one of the more stacked teams in the NFC this year. But, yeah, definitely great to see KJ Wright, retire as a Seahawk, even though he went on to play for Las Vegas for a little bit, but still comes back as a member of the Seahawks organization. And obviously, I saw throughout his time in Oakland and Las Vegas, Seahawks fans were still rooting for him. So definitely great to see that the love was still there with KJ Wright throughout Seahawks fans. And now to see him come back and say, I'm hanging it up as a member of the Seattle Seahawks organization. It's definitely great to see that. So, it's just a nice, hard story to see KJ Wright come back and play one more, be a member of the Seahawks for just one more day before he officially retires. So that's definitely great to see. But we're getting to our final story here. We're going to transition from the NFL to the NBA, to the MLB here. This came out today. Mike Trout has a rare back condition. Obviously, he's been in the IL for a little bit because of it, but never mind. It just came out on Bleacher Report that he's not even concerned about the long-term effects of the injury, but it was originally stated from the trainers that this injury could be something that lasts with him for the rest of his career. But now he's saying that it's not something to be too concerned about. But again, you never really know between the trainer and the outfielder. And Mike Trout, he's already in his 30s. He's been with this Angels organization for years now. They haven't done anything. I just wanted to bring it up because, the Angels right now, they're kind of in an interesting position. They kind of want to keep Ohtani and Trout, but they're listening to potential trades for Ohtani, which means they're obviously going to build around Trout, but Trout is older because he's 30. So there's definitely a bunch of, raising questions with this. Now, if this injury is for real, do you really want to build around a Mike Trout who's injured, or would you rather build around a younger Ohtani who is not younger, only a couple of years younger, but still, the generational talent that Ohtani is? Just kind of brings up the question, what would you do here? Yes, Mike Trout is officially kind of downplaying this, but, it does raise some concern because, what if he goes back on the IL? He has to go on for 60 days because of this back thing. It does raise some concern. If you're in the Angels organization, what do you do? Do you keep the guy you've kept for so long who has issues with being on the IL and, just kind of having his talent wasted throughout baseball? Or do you go with the generational talent who can be a great starting pitcher, a great DH? What do you do here?
I mean, if you're looking between the two of them, I think it's a no-brainer that Otani is the one you build around. I mean, since it's like Babe Ruth was the last, type of player to do both. I mean, you look at it's unfortunate, but you look at the last year for Trout, he played 36 games. He played 53 games the year before that, and then this year he's missed a good amount of time. So, it's unfortunate, but it hasn't just been this year. It's been the past few years where injuries have kind of riddled, Trout. I was looking it up. It's called the rare back condition is called costovertebral dysfunction. Is what I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but that's what it's called. I mean, obviously, Trout's going to downplay it because he doesn't want to have people freak out. But I mean, I feel like a rare back condition isn't something that you just kind of pass over. Obviously, I mean, obviously, Trout's the one dealing with it, not us or not anyone else. So hopefully, it doesn't hurt him too much. I mean, I feel like while there have been some trade rumors, though, of them listing offers for Trout, I don't, it comes down to how much people are willing to give up for him. I mean, he's not like old or anything, but just given, he's in the middle of his career. Otani makes Babe Ruth like Rick and Keel. But I mean, you just look at what Trout has done the past few years, or the lack of what he's done, how much time he's missed. I mean, obviously, he's still one of the best players in the game when he's healthy, but just that's in quotes when, obviously. So, I mean, I don't really see a Trout trade happening. I've heard Otani in the rumors too, but that seems like a MLB The Show type of trade, not like not like a real life type of trade. But then again, you could say the same about Juan Soto, and it sounds like he's going to get traded inevitably too. So, I mean, obviously, you never know. I'd be surprised if at least this year either Trout or Otani get traded. Maybe in the offseason, maybe teams look to trade for Trout, or maybe the Angels, potentially look to trade Trout. But at least for the time being, with the deadline less than a week away, I'd be kind of surprised if a trade happens with either of them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I'd rather have Otani as well, but it seems like this Angels organization doesn't know what they're doing nowadays. They want to keep Trout, but now Trout's injured, and that may be affecting his long-term career. We don't know. And then Otani, he's definitely the sensational talent that once in a generation, and that they're not fielding up. They're not trying to offer him away, but the Mets have called them, so definitely something to really note about. And then they've laid out what they're trying to offer. If a trade was to come, they want like at least two like legendary players right now. So definitely a large haul for Otani if that trade ever happens. But it's kind of up in the Angels' arms now, kind of to see what they really want to do. They want to, something this offseason because they've tried so hard. They've done everything. Rendon situation, that's a horrible contract. Mike Trout, he's been stuck there. Otani, he's trying. They have no pitching staff again. I feel like this Angels team makes the right moves, but the execution's not there every year. And so that really brings up the question, what did the Angels do this offseason? Because ever since the fight, the Angels have been one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in baseball, on the horrible decline that they've been on. And then the Mariners obviously been in the top three, one of the best teams in baseball. But yeah, definitely something to really note about Mike Trout. And obviously, he's going to be supposedly being the captain of Team USA in the World Baseball Classic next year. Definitely kind of something to note as well. But, you never really know if the player's, really fully healthy or not. And it's considered, as you said, because it's a rare back condition, like because it's so rare, that's definitely a really big question mark on whether or not he can play with it. But the Angels definitely one of the more sadder franchises in the MLB, and I definitely agree with that. Definitely more of the Portland Trail Blazers. Sorry to my friend Matt, but they have the pieces there, but they just can't execute at all. But that's going to be the end of this episode. Real quick, we're going to tune in next Friday as well. We're going to give our kind of last second, maybe MLB trades that we'd like to see as more names have been entered into the trade markets. We've seen Shane Bieber, Luis Castillo, obviously Juan Soto, kind of the bigger name. We've seen Frankie Montas. We've seen Wilson Contreras, Ian Happ. So many names being mentioned throughout the MLB trade market. We'll get into those on Friday. We'll also be doing another mock draft on Friday. So we'll be asking as we get closer and closer to the start of the 2022 NFL season. We're going to do a mock draft on Friday once again. and we'll be posting about that as well this throughout this week. So peep for that this coming week.
Well,
But
yeah, we'll do either Friday or Monday. I'm not completely sure. I hope we do it on Friday, but Friday or Monday we'll definitely do a mock draft.
yeah, we'll let you guys know. But all right, if you have anything else.
No, yeah, that's it.
All right, well, this has been an episode of AKP Sports Talk. That's RM Korea. We will see you guys hopefully on Friday